Hello, Cleveland! This is old-timey sports guy here with tinfoil hat conspiracy theory guy.
Tell me that Michael Jackson didn't get killed by the Iranian government. Tell me.
It's Caldwellop!
Caldwellop. Well, let me tell you. You ever think about the fact that, day Michael Jackson died? You know what happened? It knocked off the top trending thing on Twitter for the Iranian presidential election. You know why? Because you do that by killing Michael Jackson. You don't think that the doctor was paid by the Iranian government?
That's blatherskite!
No, the truth must come out. The truth must come out. The Cleveland Podcast!
Coming to you from deep beneath the murky waters that lie beyond the Lake Erie shoreline. This is the Cleveland Podcast! With Fred the Mud Monster and South Bay Caesar. Find us online at facebook.com/The Cleveland Podcast or email us at theclevelandpodcast@gmail.com. Now, join us as we journey through Northeast Ohio and the city of Cleveland.
Hey, Caesar!
Hey, Fred!
What's going on? You like Russian borscht?
What is that?
That's a Russian soup. Since your name is Caesar, you know that the Russian word for Caesar is Tsar, and that's the same word, and Tsar is like the leader of Russia or the king, the monarch. So I thought
I could be a Russian leader.
Yeah, and so I thought it'd be good to bring up borscht because I was getting tired of the salad jokes, so we're expanding to soup.
It's nice to have soup and salad.
Yeah, that's true. But we are here talking about the 2019, a year in review. It's all about Cleveland news.
Right.
The year that indeed was Cleveland. Lots of sports.
Right. Other than the sports, it really wasn't all that interesting.
But let's talk about the biggest sports thing right now, which is, of course, the Cleveland Browns and the mess that they are.
Oh, there was so much promise. They were predicted to be, Super Bowl contenders pretty much by everybody.
I mean, they were the most common betting favorite at one point in time. Odell Beckham was getting all types of jersey sales, and then that Titans game just started a calamitous just drop for them.
There's so much talent on the team.
There is. And yet that talent can also really control itself. I mean, as we have seen from numerous things such as Jermaine Whitehead and Myles Garrett. Jermaine Whitehead with his various tweets threatening to kill fans and even harm a reporter.
Right.
Even posting a tweet saying, "Why don't you fight me at the Browns practice stadium?"
And that was Dustin Fox, right?
Yeah, Dustin Fox. Yeah, who's the reporter.
Who's one, not just a reporter, but he's like one of the local radio personalities that we hear every day on the radio here.
Right, exactly. So you just kind of go, why? But additionally, we also, not too long after Jermaine Whitehead, we also have Myles Garrett, who just got an indefinite suspension from the NFL due to the fact that he hit Steelers quarterback Mason Rudolph with a helmet.
The entire nation is watching.
Everyone's talking about it right now.
It was on a Thursday night.
It's huge. He was huge. You think about it, you have this big man who's 260 pounds and he's attacking this quarterback. Now, in Cleveland, and myself included, even as a Ravens fan, I thought Mason kind of started that whole thing.
I fell asleep. I didn't see the end of the game.
That's fair.
So I woke up in the morning and I saw that our chat threads and many different chats that we have
just blew up.
Were exploded. So the first thing I did when I woke up in the morning was I went and reviewed the tape.
Yeah.
I guess it was YouTube. There's no tape on YouTube.
Wouldn't that be kind of cool though? But it's crazy. You see all these talk show hosts talking about, this incident. And, I thought that he'd get four games.
First thing I thought when I was watching it was, oh, he's in trouble. And then I went back and watched it more times, like when I had more time. And the more times I watch it, the more loathing I feel for Mason Rudolph.
To have a reaction like that, Mason might probably said something pretty messed up. But, not only that, but, it's just the whole year of like between Whitehead and Garrett and, and the fact that Baker Mayfield is not performing up to probably the expectations. The biggest positive for the Browns is they beat the tires off of my team. Congrats to the Browns, but there will be certainly a division champion, and it ain't going to be the Browns.
And the Browns beat the Steelers and the Ravens for the first time in history.
Oh, that's right. There's progress, but there's still much to develop. But going a little bit forward, the next thing, obviously, in sports is the Cleveland Indians. So let's start off with the All-Star game, obviously, because that was huge. We hosted it. I think everyone will know because of traffic.
We had an episode on that.
We did?
With Will. I totally screwed up the sound on that one. But it was a great time here in this city, you know?
Mm-hmm.
It was a not once in a lifetime, but because it's happened before.
Yeah, well, it's still once in a generation,
but
for sure.
Right. But it's one of those very unique opportunities, you know, and I went down to the festivities. I didn't actually go to the game itself, but
right.
I definitely went down there and explored the convention center and met some celebrities, and it was a fun time. And I think everybody loved it. The weather cooperated.
But who won that All-Star game? I do believe it was Mr. Bieber, not Justin.
The MVP was
Shane Bieber.
Shane Bieber. Yeah, you confused me there for a second.
I know. Sorry. It's just, I think of Justin first, you know, because the more famous Bieber, I suppose.
Right. Wait, wasn't his jersey not Justin? And then Justin wore a jersey that said not Shane?
Yeah. Right.
It's very confusing.
Very confusing. But then, of course, you know, the highlight of the whole year for the Indians was definitely the All-Star game. But, you know, the Indians did play well. Their record was better than last year, I do believe, right?
It was, and yet they missed the playoffs.
Which sucks. But then again, Yankees never got the World Series, so it's a victory for everyone.
Trevor Bauer was traded to the Reds.
Which is a shocker. I mean, he's such a legend here.
And Yasiel Puig became a Cleveland Indian.
I think he's going to be good. You know, Puig. I was going to go with Puig. Puig is definitely a great talent.
They almost made the playoffs. They were making a run for it. They were chasing Minnesota the entire time.
Right.
It became obvious towards the end that they weren't going to win the division, which is one way to get into the playoffs. So we had to rely on a wild card spot.
Right.
And I made the prediction that we were going to win it, and we did not.
That's okay, though.
Oakland and Tampa Bay really kind of took over in the last few weeks.
Oh, my God. Yeah, they stormed ahead.
And Cleveland kind of took a nosedive there at the end.
Yeah, well.
But there were a lot of injuries. Francisco Lindor, Jason Kipnis, and Jose Ramirez all missed a lot of times with injuries. Corey Kluber, Carlos Carrasco, and Mike Clevenger combined to make just 40 starts between them, over half of what they produced in 2018 when they tallied 95 starts.
Which, by the way, that's bad. Just so that way people know that's not good.
And that information came from some weird-ass website called England Tribe.
England Tribe. Interesting.
Blogspot.com.
So it's a bunch of British people going, go Tribe.
When I'm not watching cricket, I watch the Cleveland Indians.
Well, cricket was the predecessor to baseball. You know, cricket's a far older sport, but a lot of the rules come from cricket.
Right.
So it's definitely an old fashioned thing. But speaking of older sports as well, we have another team that had a not so great year. Cavs.
Since they start in the fall and the end in the spring, there's really kind of two half seasons in 2019.
That's true.
The previous one was the first one without LeBron. That was the first season where we didn't have LeBron James.
The second time.
Right.
Just to clarify.
Because he left, he came back, and then he left again. This time he went to LA.
So obviously, you know, the Cavs had an interesting rookie, Colin Sexton, very energetic, very explosive from Alabama. He had a pretty solid year, inconsistent, but he did his thing. There was also Kevin Love. He was out for a number of games with injuries, a multitude of injuries of different types. And then, of course, the Cavs also picked Darius Garland recently in the 2019 draft, who was a very explosive point guard. So the future of the Cavs backcourt likely will be Colin Sexton and Darius Garland. And this year, the Cavs are doing okay. You know, they're winning some games. They hang tight. They hang close. They have a lot of unique players, and including, obviously, the fact that it's wonderful to see Larry Nance Jr. continue to play decently, particularly since, as most Cleveland Cavs fans will probably know, that his father was a very famous Cleveland Cavalier.
The arena had a brand new renovation.
Oh, really?
It used to be called the Q, Quicken Loans Arena. And as we've made fun of many times on this podcast so far.
Really?
Especially early on when it first happened.
Oh, yeah.
It's now called Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse.
Sounds like really where the Rockets play. But anyway, you know.
Depending on who you ask, there's a few different silly nicknames for it.
Right.
The least silly is probably the Rock. I've also heard the Morgue. And I think it's the Alan Cox show calls it Romo Fijo.
Oh, now that's weird. That's some weird stuff, man.
Of those three, which do you?
The morgue.
The morgue.
Because that's where all players go to die. I mean, come on. That's pretty bad. Yeah, get the corpse of J.R. Smith in there. Just like, oh, where it once was his career.
The renovation cost $185 million, and it extended the Cavaliers' lease through 2034.
Right. And then also with that renovation, wasn't that to also host the All-Star Game too, which is in 2022?
It's coming up soon.
Yeah, very soon. Well, 2 years is 2, 3, whatever.
Soonish.
Oh,
we've talked about this in the past.
Yeah.
You're not extremely fond of the renovations, but it looks a lot more modern, which is important.
Yeah, that's fair.
Right.
I mean, it was kind of like a little bit dirty when you first walked in there.
Yeah.
So that's good. Obviously I have my qualms about it because income quality distribution, but it is what it is. At least it looks pretty.
Yeah. You can see the reflection of downtown, like when you walk by.
Oh, wow.
When you walk by the arena, it's really pretty.
Oh, that's nice.
When you walk down there, and it's got a place where you can go in there and stay warm while you're waiting to get into the ticket.
Oh, good.
Give them your tickets.
Nice. So that way you can say, give us more money.
Right.
More expensive tickets. But
right.
Speaking of infrastructure, we have some other buildings that have been up for renovation, haven't we?
Yes, we do. And we've talked about them in past episodes, specifically the extremely not safe for work, highly edited
skyscraper episode. I was about to say what the original title for that episode was, but maybe we shouldn't bring it up at this point. Our past couple of interviews have been kind of professional and like pretty good, and we might have a reputation we need to uphold.
Actually, our guest for that episode, Jake, asked us to remove the title from the episode. The episode was called "Skyscrapers of Cleveland." Giant phalluses in the sky.
Right.
And Jake was like, oh man, I want to share this with my family and I want to be proud of it. Can you remove the phalluses in the sky? So I did off of the title, like on all the Facebook sites and all that. What I forgot to do was remove it from the MP3 file. So when people download it, even though it's not called Giant Phalluses in the Sky,
you'll see it on there.
It downloads as once you download the actual file, it's called Giant Phalluses in the Sky.
I wonder for our super fan Xavier Stewart, I'm pretty sure he would tell me all about that. That's my best friend back home. Shout out to him, super fan, huge. He says he downloads all of our episodes.
But the beacon's almost done. It's if you look in the skyline, you don't really see what's inside, but it looks finished, It's a great new look for the city.
Absolutely. And of course, we love great new looks for the city.
And then there's the Lumen, and they had
right.
They had a little trouble recently.
Accident.
One of their cranes dropped some steel, and it landed on the parking garage below and caused some damage.
And from there, they discovered a body.
No, that was actually there were no injuries. It only caused time.
Oh well. Oh darn! We're trying to make this more morbid. That's so dangerous. I've seen steel drop. Oh man, it's the scariest sound. I mean, it just reverberates through everything, and you feel like even if you're not even that close to it, you feel like your bones are shaking. It's scary stuff.
That probably caused a little bit of a delay.
Maybe, I don't know.
It did destroy part of the parking garage. Yeah,
that might require some extra work on it. There's also another thing being rebuilt, right? A bridge, a very particular bridge.
Yeah, the Valley View Bridge. It's the most traveled bridge in the state of Ohio. There's a $227 million renovation on it, upgrade. What it's been in the past is just like, you go west on one bridge and then east on the other bridge. Up until today, I actually just researched it a little harder today. They've been doing construction in the middle, and there's like a third bridge going up in the middle. And what I thought they were doing up until today, I thought they were going to destroy the old bridges and create a new bridge, 2 new bridges. But what they're actually doing is adding 2 more lanes.
Oh,
4 more lanes.
I see. Okay.
2 lanes in each different direction. So pretty soon, the 480 bridge Valley View Bridge is going to have 6 lanes going one direction and 6 lanes going the other.
So all of our commuters out there, that's great news. But then there's another pretty famous building that had something happen, and that was the Cleveland Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Obviously, we cannot talk about Cleveland without talking about the recent Hall of Fame inductees for the 2019 class. And of course, the requirements are 25 years of excellence in the music industry, particularly rock. And of course, as that definition has expanded, we have a whole series of artists that from other genres that have gone in. And here is the class. The 2019 inductees were The Cure, Def Leppard, Janet Jackson, Stevie Nicks, who that's someone that's caught your eye.
Stevie Nicks. Oh yeah. I recently got into the album Rumors. Mm-hmm. Fleetwood Mac. That's their most famous album. To me, it's classic rock. It happened all before I was born.
Right.
And when I go back and I read about it, it's so interesting to hear about it. Like that, it's one of the most highly lauded albums of all time. But then when you go back and look, like almost all of their biggest hits are on that album. And then you go back and you read about it. There's a song, Chains. If you don't love me now, you can never love me again. Something like that. Mm-hmm. People in that band were actually dating each other.
Oh, that's right. I've heard about that.
It was a really interesting dynamic. All the people in that band couldn't escape each other. So like that song Chains was about them having a career together and having a breakup within the band. Like it happened like multiple different times.
Right.
Like different people in the bands were dating other different people in the band.
Right.
So that song Chains was literally about not being able to escape
from each
other in the band.
So that's just the other way people will know that, Fleetwood Mac, great musicians, maybe not the greatest relationship gurus.
It was in a time when there was a lot of drugs involved.
Yeah. Cocaine. So they just go, oh, wow. That's a really beautiful person. That's your bandmate. But still.
It's hot.
Oh, gosh. And then the final two inductees were Roxy Music and the Zombies. Two other very famous bands that were also in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction.
Zombies. Very fascinating podcast it's a podcast called Behind the Liner Notes, called the fake British Invasion.
Oh,
very fascinating. If you want to know about the Zombies, go to that podcast and listen.
So they're not British.
You got to listen. I'm not going to give it away. Okay. It's such a great episode of podcasting.
Yeah.
That you have to listen to it.
Oh, that's great. So,
and you're not going to be satisfied until the end.
Oh, wow. Okay. Now you got me excited. But then there's another famous building. Well, famous, I suppose, a famous company that had a recent change of heart about originally hoping to move out of Cleveland. Well, guess what? They are staying and they are here to last.
Sherwin-Williams.
That's right.
They were ready to go. They were ready to leave downtown Cleveland. They were ready to explore other opportunities. The people were worried they'd leave the city, they'd leave the state. And good news. Cleveland tried really hard to keep them, and it seems like they've succeeded. There's this parking lot in Public Square, which people despise.
Yeah, I've heard the stories about that. Right.
And it was torn. I think some historic buildings were torn down to
build it.
They were going to build another building.
Right.
And then the plans for those other buildings got scratched. And it turns out that Sherwin-Williams is looking at that space. And they want to build some skyscrapers there.
Nice. So, of course, if you want to get into the painting industry, and you might want to come here to good old Sherwin-Williams, where you can paint your heart. You can paint your heart out at the industrial standard and do things like try and figure out which house needs the best Sherwin-Williams paint.
I think they were in Tower City before. And part of the reason why they were about to leave was because they just ran out of space.
Right.
So now everything is good.
All right. So then there's one last thing that we want to cover in 2019, because, of course, we can't talk about Cleveland without talking about negativity. And that is the grandson of Mayor Frank Jackson.
Yeah.
Let me tell you, you know what this guy did? This guy has three major things, all in a year. So firstly, an 18-year-old accused him of pretty much just attacking her. And he's on trial for this now. So he punched her, choked her, and hit her with a metal truck hitch. That's the accusation. And this apparently has happened before. So, you're thinking, man, like this is the grandson of the mayor. And then, but it gets better. Trust me, it gets so much better. Recently, he's been tied in a homicide investigation.
Wow.
Dealing with the death of 30-year-old Antonio Parra, who left a barbershop and then he was shot down. Supposedly, there are people leads to the third thing. There are people who are connected to the to the grandson of Mayor Frank Jackson, who were, well, they're shooters. They decided to go after Antonio Parra, and they killed him. For gang-related reasons of sorts, money, right, drugs, the whole 9 yards. Then here's what leads to the third thing, and this is the part that you really think is weird. There's a lawsuit that recently has come out and talks about how the grandson has been running an entire gang within the house of Mayor Frank Jackson. I mean, a gang. Our mayor. Now, our mayors may or not be connected to this, but given that's the grandson, it's really unbelievable. Here's this man who's been elected multiple years as mayor and has done his duty for the city and has really, really helped push a change around for our city. And yet the grandson supposedly has done all these things, running a gang, maybe killing a man, and then attacking a woman, all within 1 year. I mean, it's disappointing, but in the end, I guess, you can't, for people who have power and fame and money, sometimes, you can't money and power doesn't cover all the blemishes that one has.
It's hard to understand, like, without knowing all the details.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Up, it's surprising. When I first heard it, I was kind of dismissive of it. But then people add more information, and then it's like, whoa, what happened here?
Yeah, it's nuts. But with that being said, though, overall year, a little bit chaotic for the city, but we are hoping that the rest of the year concludes with some nice positive news. This is the year of Cleveland for 2019 so far.
It's just going to blow up tomorrow.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Like, it's been a kind of a mundane year. Yeah. Other than the sports.
We're going to have like some huge thing. Like, Cleveland doctor discovers cure for cancer.
Aliens
in Cleveland. But of course, the biggest event of the year, though, which is ending on a positive note, was the fact that our podcast,
yes,
the Cleveland podcast, began in this year.
Right.
But that's what we're going to talk about next. Talking about what we thought about for the first time as podcast co-hosts. Let's take a break.
All right.
Hello, Cleveland. This is old-timey sports guy here with tinfoil hat conspiracy theory guy.
They watching. They're always watching. Are you watching me? Listen, you ever hear about Saved by the Bell? It was a vehicle for the Illuminati. You have to understand. Turns out the teen high school comedy Saved by the Bell was riddled with hidden messages endorsing Satanism. They had the pentagram in the middle of a commercial, and the main character had a pentagram on its head. And you didn't see it, man? They had a goat on set. That's a sign of Satan, man. Sign of Satan.
Complete fiddle faddle.
Well, you know what's fiddle faddle? You know what's really fiddle faddle? That there's a podcast run by a mud monster and a bowl of salad. It's they tell you the truth about the world, man. And you can find them on iTunes, Spotify, the Spreaker, the ClevelandPodcast.com. It's real out here, man. You be interacting with them on Twitter and Facebook. They're everywhere, man. They're like the Illuminati. They have eyes on everything. And I mean everything. Better than ever.
And this one's going to be a little more fun. We're going to talk about us.
That's right, because the most important thing in the world is us.
Yeah, that's right. Narcissists.
Yes, narcissism to the extreme.
Self-important.
We talk about the biggest news event of the year, which was, of course, us starting our podcast. Right. And, of course, we have a whole series of episodes that we've done. But we want to just talk about the year as us as podcasters and
how it all began.
So, obviously, it might be fair to start with you, Caesar. You're the one who kind of was like, hey, we should really do this.
We had some pretty great conversations before we started podcasting, right?
That's true. We certainly did.
And I thought, well, this guy would be a good guy to start a podcast with. We talked about it for a while. It's like, we should start a podcast together, right? Once we actually decided to make it happen, it took a while to get some of the hardware. When did we actually first start talking about it? Do you remember?
Oh, man, we were talking about it January, really.
Really? Like in the wintertime?
Yeah, we were talking about it then. And then we kind of were just like, whatever. And then really in March is when things really kind of kicked off.
And then we decided to buy the hardware.
Right. We started to buy all the shit.
And it took a while for some of it to get here.
Yeah, it took quite a bit of time.
And then it arrived and we were ready to go.
And all of a sudden we had to figure out what the heck we were going to do.
And I went to my brother's house and I helped without a mask, without one of the protective masks. I decided that it was a good idea to tear down a wall.
Right. Which, of course, led to some issues at the start.
About 3 weeks of horrible illness.
Yeah, I remember that.
I breathed all that in. It took a while. I think I told you a couple of weeks. It's like, I can't do this. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And then we forced it.
We did.
For the pilot. It's like, I'm still sick, but I'm going to do this anyway. And that first episode, I didn't have it all together. I hadn't had much to eat and I was a little bit tipsy. And we recorded 2 hours worth of stuff. And I had to edit out 50 minutes of it.
Right.
Because somebody got a little drunk.
Somebody, which was not me.
So if you go back and listen to the original podcast, the pilot episode, there may be some context there.
Just a little bit.
Yeah.
Then obviously we had a couple of runs, a little rough drafts, and we actually talked about the skyscrapers at one point first.
Right. Before we did that, we did 2 practice episodes.
Right. Which was skyscrapers and something about just sports in general, I think.
Yeah. The history of Cleveland sports.
Right.
Which we realized pretty quickly that a Broncos fan and a Ravens fan probably shouldn't
be talking about this.
Probably shouldn't be doing the history of Cleveland on their own without a third person who knows something about, who really loves the local teams.
Absolutely.
I am a Cavs fan and I've become an Indians fan too.
Yeah. I'm a Cavs fan, but pretty much Orioles and Ravens. I can't really quite leave those loyalties behind.
So the first episode of Skyscrapers was not nearly as dirty as when we decided to do it.
Well,
although you did venture into some things, you're like, cut that out.
Yeah, right. Fred has had some moments in his podcasting career early on that have been very edgy, to say the least. I may come off as friendly, which I am, but sometimes, I do venture into darker humor.
Yeah.
Which may not be appreciated, which that's fair.
And we'll get into that later with the Meredith episode.
Yeah, right.
Right. So then we had the good and the bad, which went pretty smoothly, right?
Yeah, that's kind of one of the ones that's one of the first ones people went, oh, cool. That's really cool.
We did those on the same day.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
That was definitely a marathon. Woo.
And then we did the Abandoned Buildings of Cleveland, which is our most downloaded episode to date.
Right. That's the big boy. That's the one that's been our major cash crop.
But we started to have some sound issues.
Oh, do tell.
So if you go back and listen to those episodes and you hear, that's because we were recording in a room where the air conditioning was blowing nonstop.
Right. Because we didn't know how the sounds we picked up, picking different rooms across Case Western Reserve University.
We're new podcasters.
Yeah. So
we were new podcasters.
We were. Now we're somewhat veterans. We're we're the equivalent of the teenager with a little bit of the peach fuzz on the top. That's us right now.
Yeah. But we got in these rooms, and even the good and the bad, you hear the air conditioning in those too as well.
Right.
But then the abandoned buildings, you heard it extra much. So we stopped podcasting until we figured out what the problem was.
Mm-hmm.
And then we went to the next episode with William Walkoff.
Right. Talk about the All-Star game.
And our sound problems were going to be completely fixed, right?
Oh, yes, certainly. I mean, it's not possible that Will's voice is just super duper deep in machismo and just suddenly just changed like that.
And that was probably our worst sound episode ever.
You think?
I overcompensated.
Well, that's fair.
So you know who Will sounded like after I screwed up the sound? He sounded like Tom Brokaw. Super deep voice.
Hi, I'm William Wolkoff. Today we're talking about on ABC Nightly News.
Right. And so if anybody likes that super extremely fake deep voice, go listen to that episode.
Yeah. So if you like deep voices going into your eardrums, just saying things like, this is Fred and Caesar.
Once there was this kid who, you know that song?
I do. Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought we kind of sounded like the, fee, fee, fi, fi, fo, fo, fum. I smell smoke in the auditorium, Charlie Brown. And that really deep voice. It's like, ooh, me? Oh, I mean, because I actually can pull off the deeper voice. I can kind of go into the much deeper range of voice.
I like it when I get a cold sometimes, and I have that actually in our first couple of episodes, I just kind of have like a raspy voice.
Right.
And we were recording with different mics at the time, and it was just like, damn, that sounds sexy.
Well,
but then we changed to the new mics, and then I don't have it anymore.
Well, it's funny because we
don't have to deal with the air conditioning.
But no matter what, for me though, people said, your voice sounds really nice, and I'm like, oh, thank you. They said apparently, like I showed it to my family, and they go, the first episode, and they go, I think your voice might be a good attraction for female listeners. And I go, oh, sure, yeah, sure.
With those old mics, you ever listen to ASMR?
Yeah, yeah.
I've been thinking about getting into ASMR.
Oh, you just got it.
No, I don't think.
No, they do that.
I don't think licking is.
Oh my!
Is it?
You've not seen the really weird stuff. I'm a weird person. So, I also just run into people. Some of my favorite YouTubers who respond to this stuff. I mean, there are people going, they literally lick the mic.
That's not what does it with ASMR.
Oh, it grinds my gears. Like it drives me up the wall.
ASMR grinds your gears.
Yeah, it drives me nuts.
Why?
It's just that little quiet voice. I just want to hear it speak up.
But anyways, that William Walkoff one was our first guest, and he was an amazing guest.
Yes, he was.
And it was horrible that it went so poorly, the sound on it. Mm. We were using new equipment. We didn't know what we were doing. We were in a room that we had never been before. We were at the Independence Library.
Yeah, we were.
And we were trying to move quickly because he was limited on time. And
right. So then the next person was Jacob Jabowski, the professional photographer. And I thought that was kind of like where we turned the leaf a little bit.
That's where the podcast started to start going well.
Because then we started to get better commercials. Well, we started with Smelly Moldy Ghost. That was the very first one.
Right.
Because that's also the most famous commercial that we've got. And then, then we got some better ones. We need to really bring back DC for another commercial. I won't obviously do the voice here. But then the photography one was just kind of like deep. We had questions, and we brought up eventually we stopped it, the whole TripAdvisor thing and like things to do in Cleveland and that.
But we need to go back there a little bit too.
Yeah, we do.
In the second season.
We do. We have to revisit.
We've had such great guests who stood on their own that we kind of got away from talking about Cleveland, the city itself.
Yeah.
And we need to get back to that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But then again, we did cover quite a bit because then we talked about skyscrapers next. Our most foul-mouthed episode that we've ever produced.
And that one was highly edited for a different reason.
Right.
If anybody listens to that episode and maybe towards the end notices that I'm a little bit frustrated, that's because I edited out a lot.
There's a lot that had to be changed. I felt bad because I'm the one who kind of I was the one who said all the phallic jokes. I just kept pressing it. And I went full on almost pornographic, and even now I look back, I'm like, ooh, that was definitely not my best moment. We said some stuff in the unedited version, which nothing like ridiculously inappropriate, but very raunchy.
More of the same. A lot more of the same.
Yeah, a lot more of the same stuff. Just maybe like a tinge raunchier.
So from then we went on to the episode with Alex, and Alex is a respectable man in the community. So we had
Reese's Cleveland.
Change directions pretty quickly.
I love that episode.
Yeah, it was one of my favorites
because it was kind of like serious, but he had a way to also be funny too.
Yeah.
And just talking about, that was kind of like our first episode where we delve deep into the community aspect of Cleveland. Really. We talked about like photography and like, the All-Star game, but here we're talking about neighborhoods and like, community organizing. And that's definitely my cup of tea.
And then we went on to Daniel.
Yeah.
You want to try pronouncing his last name?
You think I want to get sued?
No win.
Well, no win. If we get a lawsuit, I know it's you. I think I didn't even know. I was like, no yen. Like, we're so sorry, Daniel. We're going to keep butchering that name. For some reason, we've run into this problem. I had a roommate with that last name, and I still can't get that right. But that was very interesting. I like that one quite a bit. The invention one was pretty cool. because we had obviously just kind of like, I didn't know Cleveland was such a birthplace for so many technologies, lights, like street lights and all that good stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, I was here, the gas mask and, the Tommy sub machine gun is where it was manufactured. It wasn't like the blueprint, I don't think was from here. But you think about that, you go, wow, that's pretty incredible to think about all these crazy inventions. And I think it was kind of cool to bring in someone from Vietnam into the episode and kind of like have him talk about it.
Right.
I thought that was something that was kind of just unique and interesting. And also it was kind of hilarious too, because he knew some of the stuff, like the Superman thing, Superman being from here and all that good and all that jazz that comes from here. And he goes, oh, that's really cool. And he sounds pretty good.
For me, the podcast was inspired by when I first moved to Cleveland and I knew nothing about it.
Right.
And I still think we need to venture more into those territories. It's like, let's be more helpful to people that are moving to the city.
Right.
Again, we've had such great guests that we kind of got away from that, but let's get back to helping people move to the city. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And that's
helping people understand the city,
right,
as they move here.
And and we already have a couple people who might be already for next season that will definitely help with that for sure.
Right.
But we can't spoil anything yet. The next episode was Bad Cleveland Jokes and Stuff.
And that was fun because it was at a time when I was overwhelmed with other responsibilities and I had to kind of like slow down a little bit. And you took us aside and been like, let's just do you and me.
Right.
Let's just have some fun.
Yeah, because that was just kind of, and for me, I also got caught in a lot of responsibilities as well that, a lot of just hair pulling activities, with work and school and, it all turned out pretty good in the end, but but there's still some things that I wish I would probably take back from that time. But in terms of the episode itself, it was just a good moment to just let loose.
Right.
Talk crap about jokes for you. And that was that awful joke list.
That was probably our best episode where it was just you and me.
Yeah.
It was a lot of fun.
Yes, absolutely.
It was pretty short.
Yeah.
Which we need to work on getting shorter.
We're getting there.
It's hard when we have such great guests with such great information.
I know.
But when it's just you and me, we need to like in and out.
But additionally, there was I'll spoil this. One of the tough responsibilities, and this relates to our next episode, was we actually recorded this episode, the next one with Meredith, before Bad Cleveland Jokes.
Right.
But then we had technical issues that we've never seen before. And oh my gosh, I felt so horrible.
It was like one of my lowest moments. Oh, right. That's what led up to us just doing you one-on-one. Yeah.
And it was because we recorded this episode with Meredith, which was a lot tougher and raunchier because we talked about Krampus, which eats children.
Yeah, there was a lot of cannibalism.
And
in that
somehow
episode.
I kept that joke going by saying I was Krampus, which is a very bad idea. Obviously, I don't do that. But
the second recording of that episode was way better than the first.
Yes. But that was kind of interesting.
But that doesn't stop the fact that it was like extremely frustrating. I went home and I realized that nothing that we recorded was there.
And that's unbelievable because we had 1 hour and 20 minutes of content, which of course edited down would be like an hour 15. And all of a sudden we're left with nothing.
Yeah. And it came at a time when we were both exhausted.
Oh yeah, we definitely were.
And, so that's when we went to that, Bad Cleveland Jokes and Stuff and just kind of took it down to like a basic.
Right.
And had fun.
Right. And, we got quite a few good reviews on that one, too. Quite a few people said that episode was pretty funny.
Yeah. And we found some ways to back up our podcast a little bit just in case we have technical difficulties again.
Right. I'm staring at the backup right now.
So pretty much everything up to this point was us learning about technical difficulties.
Yes.
And then from then, things went a little more smoothly.
Oh, yes. Because then we record the next episode with Meredith, and that was
the second time.
That was much better. Yeah. That was smoother, just overall, just made more sense.
It was one of our better episodes.
Oh, for sure. And Meredith was just such a solid guest.
Yeah.
She really brought in good quality. And also, we got to learn about the Skunk Fest. So that was really fun.
And Mittens the Kitten.
Mittens the Kitten, which is next.
Which has been highly downvoted.
Yeah, that's
on all forms of internet.
Yeah, so that's been a big one too. To kind of get our name on the map here.
You can actually download as a single Mittens the Kitten to your phone and listen to it anytime you want. But nobody wants to.
Yeah, right.
Because it's horrible.
Right. Because then people don't want to go, why you want your headphones blaring in the middle of the bus, and it goes, why the fuck are there so many kittens in the city? Why the fuck? It's just it really, I think people look at you kind of odd. You go, is that avant-garde
Yes.
music? Oh yes, very avant-garde. It's called Caesarism.
I have lots of more horrible music in my head that I want to get out.
Yeah. Uh-oh.
That nobody's going to download.
Right. So, that way people will know there are more shitty songs for the future. And then what's next after that is, of course, where this is the episode where Caesar almost fell asleep.
And it's a great episode.
It is fantastic, but just wasn't Caesar's cup of tea because for context, Sam Lee and I have known each other for almost 3 years.
Right.
And additionally, when we were in a fraternity together, he was my little in a fraternity. And so that's how we kind of developed our relationship and our friendship. Well, friendship. We don't have a relationship, but, but, he was actually a history major when he first started at Case Western. And then all of a sudden he turned to chemistry, and we kept the friendship. And all of a sudden he was like, he listened to our podcast, like, dude, I want to go on. And I was like, yeah, of course, you'd be interesting. And all of a sudden, I just knew I had to let him just go.
People who care about like pre-med, medicine, the hospitals in Cleveland are probably going to really appreciate that episode.
Right. But we're not in medical school.
I'm not.
I'm
like a more artsy kind of guy.
Yeah, I am too. But still, I have a lot of clients who are into the sciences. So I have to learn a lot about medicine.
So there's been a few times when I've been just looking at the sound and I just kind of zone out. And when I come back to reality and somebody asks me a question after I'm looking at the sound, it's kind of like, so why male models?
Right.
I explained that to you already.
Yeah, right.
You remember that from Zoolander?
Yeah, right.
Sometimes I feel like that when I'm on the podcast. I kind of zone out for a second. I'm looking at the sound or thinking about something else.
Right. But still, you had some great tidbits in there, including that I did not know about you playing in a Korean church.
Right.
So then the next episode we had was the one with Ariel, and that one was all about vegan potlucks, entrepreneurship. He had a lot to say.
I think that's the only episode we've ever done who was just about a person.
Yeah.
Like a really interesting person.
Yeah, because he was just that interesting. We just kind of go, just put him on there and just let him talk. Don't get me wrong, our other guests are interesting too, but Ariel's had
yeah, we've had all great guests.
Right, but Ariel is a very layered person with a lot of interests that just he's like a racquetball that just kind of bounces around across the whole room. Like, I'll try this, I'll try that, I'll try this, I'll try that.
Right.
And it's just fascinating to watch him just do that. And it's something that's really cool. Then, of course, we have the one super episode.
Like our most incredible episode yet.
This episode, of course, is the big one that we've took months to get ready.
Yeah.
The Christmas Story House with Ernie. It just, let me tell you, it was a process to get this thing. And naturally so, because obviously we recorded in the house, the neighbor's house, but still it was just one of those surreal moments.
It was a really good feeling to have him be so excited about our podcast.
Right.
That he had so much fun with us.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I guess then to kind of wrap things up here, what would be your biggest takeaway from all of our podcasting so far?
Well, I'm just excited that the sound issues seem to be over.
Yes.
And I feel so much more confident going into our second season coming up.
Right.
We're going to take a little break.
Because the guests are getting substantially more time to book.
And it's a holidays, so
we want to take a
we want
break.
to spend times with our
loved ones.
Yeah.
I guess the biggest takeaway for me is just feeling like we really have just grown a lot as individuals through this podcast. I mean, I didn't know jack shit about setting up studios and equipment. And literally just for this episode, mostly she's like, all right, why don't you set it up? And I'm like, cool. And I'm just plugging in the right spots. And it was very small, but it just made me feel good.
And one of the cool things, when we first started our first trial episode, we did 2 practice episodes as we talked about earlier.
Mm.
I thought I had an idea of what we were going to be like. And what I didn't realize was that I didn't realize that Fred was going to be so spontaneous. And I started talking and Fred went off on a tangent and I'm like, maybe I'll bring that back sometime.
Right.
I had no idea what to say. I think we have a good chemistry, but we had to learn how to make it work.
Oh, absolutely. Because it's a podcast.
Yeah.
But I think, it was kind of interesting just to learn how to kind of refine that a little bit, kind of keep it more narrow.
Right.
But also just seeing you become more vocal and just like, I think you've gotten funnier over time and just, all those things. I think it's just, we've just through this, we've learned even more about each other.
Yeah.
We've gone beyond drinking at the bar and just be like, hey, it's a good joke. And, ooh, isn't this person quite attractive? We kind of we've now gone into, let's talk about, Cleveland itself and, how we're going to talk to this person and how we're going to coordinate that. And just through that, we've learned so much about each other.
And we've learned a lot about podcasting.
Oh, for sure.
Like we've had a lot of great guests, but one thing that we don't have is people interacting with us online, which is surprising.
Right.
I would love to get more people interacting with us online.
Right.
For some reason, people don't want to.
Yeah, I think people just kind of want to download and then kind of go in, go out. You know?
And we've had a lot of downloads too.
We got a comment or two, but downloads have been good. We already have a super fan, so that helps.
That's true.
Yeah,
I think our Christmas story podcast was kind of like the preview of things to come.
Yeah, we're getting more serious. We had to really cut down. We weren't going to bring in phalluses in the sky type of behavior to
right.
the Christmas story house. But again,
it was a fun one.
It was fun, but again, we are taking this more seriously.
Right.
I think we're having more fun, kind of like we understand it better. And, and it's fun to have people listen to us. And we've had a couple hundred views. I mean, that's crazy to think that we're making people's lives a little bit better just through making them laugh and smile and just say, oh, that's pretty good facts. And we even got a shout out. So we're doing something right, but it all will fall apart come season 2. I'll come in wearing a diaper as Fred, and then I'll be Fred the baby.
I think we're going to go next level.
Next level.
Yep.
That means I'm going to wear a diaper and I'm going to put it on my head. That's the next step. And I'll become Fred the baby mud monster.
It's been a great season.
It has been. And it's been a joy, a pleasure. And of course, we look forward to season 2. Thank you to all of our listeners. Thank you to our super fans. Thank you to
our guests.
To our guests.
Yeah, amazing guests.
Amazing. And of course, thank you especially to you, Caesar. I think you really pulled a lot of it together because obviously I could do the conversations and I've gotten much better with the equipment, but I didn't know anything about that.
Right.
And you're just kind of hey, this is what we're going to do. And
you've been a great character,
Oh yeah. We're just trying to do what we're trying to do best.
I'm incredibly surprised how much you've come through. I thought it was going to be good. I think it's much better than I ever assumed it would be.
That's right. Don't underestimate a mud monster. Never will, never do. And that is the story of this entire podcast. Never underestimate a salad maker and a mud monster. Farewell, everyone. We'll see you later.
Later.
You ever see those pictures, man, of like 1920? Jay-Z looks like the exact same as that guy from 1920, like who had a car and everything. Jay-Z is a time traveling vampire. How come he doesn't age, man? Seriously, he never ages. He's got to be sucking the blood out of Beyonce or something, man. I'm telling you, he's definitely a vampire. Beyonce's a vampire too. You know the dinosaurs, because they're really smart. And they build the pyramids. I'm serious, man. Because how can humans push those humongous boulders up to build the great pyramids of Giza? Impossible. So they brought in Tyrannosaurus Rexes and they crossbred them, and they had Triceratops pushing up the top of the mountain. They made pyramids, and then they buried the dinosaurs in the pyramid because we have to understand that the dinosaurs are trying to contact the aliens that exist up on planet Katuka Papar. It's a planet that's really, really, really far away, like Star Wars, man. I'm telling you, it's real, man. It's real. The dinosaurs are building the pyramids, man.
Sounds like absolute horse feathers.